And welcome back to Joe Kelley Radio here. We are about to have a special guest. He was a child prodigy at the age of 2, playing guitar, and has just progressed all through his career. Hasn't taken a step off from his excellence, and he has just released a great new record on vinyl, too. Aquarius Purple. He is out in New York City. His name is Marcus Machado, and we're really finally glad to have Marcus Machado with us. How you doing?
Man, I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. How you guys doing?
We're doing great, and I got to first talk about the record release party. I didn't catch it live, but I caught it like an hour after you had concluded. But that was really nice.
Oh man, thank you, man. Yeah, we were just I was trying to figure out a way to, bring the party virtually to, everybody's living rooms, I guess.
Right, right.
Of and no, it was just it was a spontaneous type of last minute. Just say, you know what, let's just go virtual, let's just go live and just see what happens. And I was so happy, everybody came out and really tuned in and stuff like that and got a first listen of the album.
Can people still watch the thing, or was it kind of one night only?
Yeah, it was like a one night only, so it was kind of like, yeah, that's it. If you missed it, then too bad. But we'll
Yeah,
have some more. We still have some more things in the works and some cool stuff coming up. So keep your eyes, ears, and open, for that.
Marcus' website is officialmarcusmachado.com, Machado.com.
Yep.
And Aquarius Purple just released. You sold out of the limited edition purple vinyl right away, right?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like within 57 seconds, people were hitting me up and saying, man, I logged on at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and that was it. 101, it was over with. But, just overwhelmed of the response and, positive vibes and getting a lot of great feedback from the album. Of course, the limited edition vinyl, the purple vinyl is sold out, but the actual black vinyls are still available. You can get it on my website and stuff like that. Yeah.
So is there going to as well CD and MP3?
Yeah. So we're looking between now and probably next month that we'll do
Okay.
a digital release and, make sure everybody gets, the album in all different forms and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, when I went to school at NYU for a little bit down in the early '80s, and record stores
Right.
were really they were really happening. I mean, have you gotten a lot of support from the New York stores for your new release and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I mean, we're living in a time where everything now is super like, digital and, everybody wants to have it on their phones. But, with this project, I definitely wanted to, kind of go back to the old school way because that's how the way I was brought up is like listening to records and stuff. And, just the fact that the vinyl world and everybody's been super supportive of, of this record and stuff. And, everybody wants to pick it up. So no, I've been overwhelmed with all the responses and stuff like that from all different fields and stuff. So yeah, it's exciting. Like I said, the project, I started this album 9 years ago. Basically, I was living in Amsterdam where I really started, focusing on getting the album, putting together. And then between that time, I ended up coming back home to New York and, touring, working with several different artists and stuff. So it was kind of like a tug and pull, trying to finish up the record. And finally, last year during the pandemic where everything kind of shut down, kind of forces me to kind of like really sit down and finish up, the album. And yeah, I'm super proud of it and, happy how the way, everything came out. For sure.
So you're right in New York City,
Yeah.
and talking about the pandemic, it was hot and heavy with COVID right when it started. What was your feelings as a musician, a working musician, when that happens? Is because I'm sure you've never gone through that in your
Yeah.
whole life. How did you deal with it initially?
With me, man, I was dealing with it like everybody else. I mean, beginning of 2020, everything was set. I was actually touring with Jose James, and we just came back from an actual tour in Japan, and we was literally like a week off from like being stuck. Like if we would have stayed there a week longer, we would have probably been stuck in in Japan.
Mhm.
And then, after that, then, I had, a few family members passed away due to COVID. And then, we just all got hit, there was no shows, no nothing like that. So for me, I kind of took it as, this is a reset. You know what I mean? Things will get back to normal, but just try to stay busy. So did a lot of session work and finished up, all these projects that I kind of had on the side, and kind of, really focus and zoned in on finishing up my album and, several other projects. And that's what kind of kept me busy through the whole pandemic, because yeah, I mean, it's super real for musicians. Like, you can either be super creative or you can be depressed. You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, I kind of took it to, like, what, just zone in and just use this time to reset and just finish up the project. So, I'm totally grateful and blessed to have, stayed busy during the pandemic, during that time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sorry to hear about your family members
I know,
passing away. That's awful tough too,
yeah,
especially. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, I went through it like everybody else, you know what I mean? And, just the main thing is health, you know what I mean? Health wise, and, you can't do nothing if you're not healthy, you know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah.
you definitely, stay healthy first. And, yeah, the music. And now, we're back in the new year, 2021, and, things are getting a little bit better. And, I'm just excited to finally release all this music that I've been holding on to for some time.
Yeah. It seems like you've got a great group of friends and musicians doing a lot of creative things out in Brooklyn and all over the city. I'm thinking back to like the late '90s when like the Knitting Factory, so many great shows in those little rooms, and Jeff Lee Johnson and Bernie Worrell was in the big room. Talk about the scene that you guys are a part of, because you got a lot of things going on. You mentioned. Let's hear about some of them.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much different stuff. I had a project with the legendary Pete Rock and the Soul Brothers,
Right.
which is features Pete Rock, Mono Neon on bass, myself.
Oh yeah, and Mono, yeah.
Holmes from Jack White, also Jermaine Holmes, which was the backing vocalist for D'Angelo and the Vanguard, and it's basically like a super group of musicians, and those are my brothers and stuff. So that project is out now. It's called Peace Instrumentals 3. The second project I have out is the group 13, which features Pharoah Monch, myself, and Daru Jones, which is like a rock hip hop project. That's another project too that we've been working on for 6 years, and just been overwhelmed with all the great responses from that record. And then in between that time too, myself and my sister has a production company called Mach 7 Music, where we produce hip hop, R&B, different stuff. And then we started up a TV show, a bi-weekly show on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook called QSTV. Basically, it kind of showcases creatives from the New York City area, and if you're a musician, artist,
Right.
painter, whatever have you, you have a platform to come out and play, and and really something for independent artists. Because I feel like during the pandemic, with everything shut down, musicians didn't have no outlet to really like play. Everybody was just like shedding, in their house, in the studio, whatever. But this was just a platform just to have, to have them come out, to a venue and really play. Of course, there's no audience, but
Right.
to let all that stuff out and try to get back to the old school way of how things used to be. Because you had BT Jazz, you had a lot of different shows, music shows that you really don't see, no more.
Yeah.
So just trying to bring all that back. So I think between all those different circles, and also too doing movie scoring stuff with like Robert Glasper and Layla Hathaway, and working with Anderson .Paak on a couple things, just staying busy, and I feel like as an artist, independent artist and musician, don't limit yourself to just one thing, to just touring or putting out records. Music is very wide span, so you try to do as much as you possibly can in different areas of music.
Man, Marcus Machado is with us here on Joe Kelley Radio and QSTV. I caught some of that. The last one, I think it was the last one. It was cool that you're behind kind of the mixer, and then you walked down coolly. You had the
votes.
rhythm.
It's a double. Yeah, it's a doubler microphone. So basically, it's like a MIDI microphone where you can actually beatbox or sing, and you hear all these different sounds, and it can sound like an 808 or like strings and stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of did like a little looper on the beat, and then went and started jamming out to beatboxing on the beat on the doubler and stuff. So yeah, it's just fun, just experimenting.
So people can go to or Twitch, just type in QSTV and it'll go right to it, right?
Yep, on YouTube you can find us on QSTV. Instagram is official QSTV, and yeah, you can catch the show every other Thursday at 8 p.m. Follow, subscribe, and yeah, you'll see a whole bunch of different stuff on there. We're at episode 5 right now. We have Pete Rock on episode 3, and just you see a whole lot of great musicians and different artists from New York City area, and then also too we're branching out to friends overseas and stuff. So we're not limited just only here, but worldwide thing, and just giving people a platform to showcase their talents.
So as you grew up in a musical family, you talk about the records. I know your parents were big music lovers.
Yeah.
Were they musicians too?
Yeah, my father, he was a musician, or he played a little bass and a little guitar. My mom, she was like an A&R, like she could tell you any record with song that was a hit, and her record collection was like crazy. So that's where
Wow.
I picked up from. In our house, it could be from Weather Report to Coltrane to Crosby, Stills and Nash to Jimi Hendrix. Just all different genres of music. So growing up, then also too, I'm a '80s baby. So with hip hop like Tribe Called Quest and Slum Village, then I kind of took all those different influences, and I was like, man, if one day if I start making music, I would like to incorporate all these different genres, because as much as I love rock, I love blues the same way equally. You know what I mean? And
Right.
yeah. In our house, it was just a whole bunch of music and records and jamming, and my sister, she's also too a producer, female producer, in her own star in her own right too as well. And yeah, just and my other sister, everybody plays a instrument, you know what I mean, or something.
So did you give them a vinyl of Aquarius Purple for them?
I told them they had to pay for it. No.
Right.
No, they have it. No, they have it. They were
okay.
No, they have it. No, they were the first people that actually listened to it. The test printing and all that stuff too. So
Right.
those are my biggest critics. You know what I mean? So I say, check this out. Let me know what you think. And they all liked it, and super proud of the project. And for me, with this being my debut album, I wanted to make sure that to get the point across that it's an album for the guitar gods, for people like Eddie Hazel, Prince, Jimmy, Buddy Guy, and all the Sly Stone, all the different people that I grew up on, and just wanted to have an album that represents all those different genres of music. So whether if you're a rock person, a blues person, something for everybody, and just trying to create something new.
Right. And you can go to officialmarcusmachado.com to keep up to date on when the official release for the black vinyl is not out yet, right?
Yeah. The black vinyl is out right now.
Okay.
You can go to my website, or you can go to Soul Step Records, and the black vinyls are available, and then sometime next month there will be a digital release. For all the people that's on Spotify and iTunes and CDs and all that stuff, that'll be available as well. But for right now, you can get the black vinyl on officialmarcusmachado.com.
Okay, and also I really dug you were on the Late Night with Stephen Colbert with 13.
Yeah.
The trio sounded really, really strong, man. That was great.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. 13 is a project, those are my brothers, man. And, Pharoah Monch, he's such a visionary, as not only a lyricist, but, as a director, and, merging all the different ideas that we put for that project. And, a trio with it just being just an MC, a guitar player, and a drummer, it's different, you know what I mean? Because in that project, I'm playing lead guitar and bass at the same time, because a lot of people is like, if you need a bass player, I can play too, but that's the whole dynamic of the band. Each person brings something different to the table, and that was a lot of fun, doing the late night with them and stuff. And that album is out right now, so go to 13.com, channel13.com, and pick up our new record. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked how Pharoah, introduced the style of music that 13 plays and the band right in between the two songs. That was really cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Because like I said, he's a big Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, and Band of Gypsies, head. So we wanted to merge the rock influence, but also too, you know, with the hip hop influence too as well. And you know,
Right.
and just trying to bring something new, you know what I mean? And I feel like, you know, we're in a time where, you know, every day there's something being put out, you know. So it's like it's so much music that's being put out every day. It's hard to find, you know, something that's good or not good, you know what I mean? Because you have so much material that's being put out to you every day. So, you know, we wanted to be different and, you know, find our own lane, you know, to start something new. Mhm.
Another really interesting performance, a couple of performances that I saw, performing the national anthem with the
Yeah.
Golden State Warriors and my team, the New York Knicks, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I gotta say this, I mean, amazing performances on both nights, but the fans, they waited until the end to give you a great applause. Usually you're hearing shouting, but they were into it and they were listening.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that was another crazy, you know, experience. For me, it was always a dream to, you know, play for the Knicks and, you know, play the anthem. You know what I mean? It's one thing to do a halftime show and stuff, but to play at the Garden, you know, it's, you know, especially the anthem, you know, within a few seconds, if people don't dig it, they're gonna let you know. New Yorkers will let you know.
Right.
And so it was kind of like, you know, all eyes is, you know, is on you. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, you know, just to play. And then, you know, after the performance, you know, amount of people was coming up to me and saying, man, you know, I don't really care for the anthem, but you know, your version, I really dug it a lot. You know, it means a lot. It means a lot. And you know, and then actually to go to Oakland and play for the Golden State Warriors, you know, that was fun too as well. So, you know, I love them both equally and stuff. And, you know, it's just yeah, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to, you know, have play those two venues. Mhm.
Yeah, and also besides you're a great performance. I just realized, I said, wow, the whole roster has changed in so short of a time.
Yeah, it
Because
was.
I'm like,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was because Golden State, that was the last. I think after when I played, there was maybe 2, 3 more games before they switched over to San Francisco. So the Oracle Arena, that's gone now, and also to KD, Kevin Durant was there. So I got a chance to see
right,
Durant play, you know, like some of his last games before, you know,
right.
switched over here to Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was. It's a lot. It's a lot. A lot has happened in, you know, that short span of time. Mhm.
I think the Oracle was one of the last places Prince did a show.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
Yeah, piano and microphone. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yep, for sure, yeah.
also, you were when you were about 10 years ago, or maybe less than that.
Mhm.
Rolling Stone featured you as one of the youngest and brightest
Right.
guitarists. And what was that like to be featured like that? And
Oh man,
rightly so.
it was super random, man. I went and a friend of mine's had sent me a link, and he was like, "Man, this you know Rolling Stone is doing this like contest type of thing, you know, with guitars, and you know I thought of you. You should check it out." And I was like, I'm not really into the contest type of thing. So, but he was like, man, the only thing you got to do is just, you know, send in your video and just see what happens. So, you know, I sent in the video and I didn't think nothing of it. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then maybe like a month, a couple weeks later went by and I got an email saying that, you know, I'm like in the top 100 as a finalist for, you know, to be the next Young Gun. And, you know, I thought that was enough. I was like, wow, man, they really, you know, recognize because, you know, a lot of contests, a lot of times you have so many different musicians and guitar players, you know, it's hard to find, the best guitar players and stuff like that, you know, who's good or who's not. You know, they just kind of just throw out a name and they're like, okay, here you won. And yeah, I went and I sent in another video, and then from that it went from that to I was in the top 8, you know, out of 100 guitar players and stuff. And I said, wow, I said this is crazy. I go, you know, thank you just for even Rolling Stone to even mention me as a finalist.
Right.
That was enough for me. You know, I wasn't even thinking no more else. And then finally when they called me and they said, no, you're the winner. You're the next, you know, Young Gun. I said, wow, this is crazy. And yeah, it was a you know beautiful experience. They flew me out to LA. I ended up you know recording the song out in the studio in LA. And at the time I was just finishing up my EP 29, which that's out now on you know iTunes and all streaming platforms. And yeah, the timing was just right. And Yeah, it was crazy for me. It was definitely surreal. I wasn't expecting none of that at all, and just the timing of that, and then my EP was coming out. I had just came back from living in Europe, for a while and stuff like that. So I just felt like, I guess, the cards would line. You know what I mean? So no, it was a great experience for sure.
So what brought you out to Amsterdam and live out there a few years?
Yeah, Amsterdam. I was my musical family. Sandra Saint Victor, V. Jeffrey Smith, and Peter
Right.
Lord, known as the Family Stand, and they're like my mentors and my musical parents. And at 17, they brought me out to Europe. They brought me underneath their wing and said, "Listen, we want you to come out with us on tour." And I was such blown away by playing in London and Amsterdam and Germany and all these places. I always was fascinated with Europe, just playing out there, even with the story of Hendrix, just him going out there, and it was just a different scene. And once I went out there with them touring, I was like, man, I got to find a way to stay out here if it's possible. And it just so happened they introduced me to another friend of mine's out there, and he was working on a record, and he was like, man, I want you to come back out when you finish with the tour, and start producing some songs for my record. And as soon as I finished up the tour, came back home and then went back out and ended up staying in Amsterdam for like 2 months, finished his album. And then from that, it was like, man, he was like, man, we got all these shows coming up, and before you know it, here I am, 120 shows, playing. And
Wow.
that's what kind of made me stay,
Hmm.
stay in, Holland. And I was like, man, I was like, you know what? Let me try it. Let me do 6 months and see what happens. And and if all goes well, keep going. If not, then at least I tried something out of my comfort zone. And yeah, that's what happened. End up touring and playing and doing a lot of different shows all across of Europe, and that's what made me stay in Holland for for a couple years. And it really showed me and taught me a lot, from production, working with different artists, and it just kind of opened my ears up a little bit more. And yeah, it was a great experience. I will say to any young musician or anybody out there, traveling is key. If you have an opportunity to travel, you can learn so much by just traveling and just living your dream. And yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, man, that's how I ended up being out there for a while.
Yeah, when I was in my mid to late 20s, I lived in Taiwan for 3 years, and that was a
Wow.
great experience. Yeah, I
Yeah, man.
mean,
Yeah, man. Yeah,
just a
man.
different region of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, totally different. And being out there, I was kind of in that world for a minute, and then it's just like the stars were aligned, because when I was like itching to kind of get back home, that's when the Rolling Stone thing had happened. So Rolling Stone, that really brought me back home. And from there, I was able to finish my EP and put that out. And then I came back, and then everything was rolling from there. Still during that time, I was still working on Aquarius Purple. So it's like, when you hear the record, this is a record that started like 8-9 years ago up to now. So it's like, it started with me being in Europe. It started again when I came back during my time here, and through the pandemic. So I'm just glad that it's out. So I
Yeah,
can
right.
move on to the
It's a
next.
big relief. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and being in demand in with working on other people's records.
Yeah.
Did have you probably did you record down in the village at where Hendrix Electric Ladyland?
Yeah, I did. I did some recording out at Electric Lady. I did some stuff with Yeba, who's a great singer. Yeah, I did some recording out there, and different studios and stuff, and just trying to stay busy, because besides for me being an artist, I'm a producer too as well. So for me, my thing is always try to work, just kind of, have a long range of different, musical ideas and stuff. And that's when, I started working with Robert Glasper, and, he kind of brought me on underneath his wing for movie scoring stuff. And, that's how I ended up doing a project with him and Layla Hathaway, which is a song
Right.
that's out called, Show Me Your Soul, from a documentary called Mr. Soul. And, start getting in. And then from that, I started getting into scoring stuff. So it was a slew of different stuff going on at the same time, and just trying to stay busy. And I think for me, of course I could have put out the album years ago, but I just feel like timing, it's all about timing, you know what I mean? Because I
Right.
think, like, even now, the downside with COVID, like not having those shows is one thing, but I really think that with COVID, it kind of put a reset on everybody and it let people start paying attention to real music again. You know what I mean? Whereas everything was so fast coming to where it's like, you know, if there's a show, you're like, yeah, I can go check him out, you know, another day, to where now it's like you're almost grateful, you know, for shows and, you know, virtual experiences and all that stuff too. So yeah, I think the pandemic kind of made it made people the force to listen to music again even more. You know what I mean? And yeah, I just feel like the timing was perfect. And yeah, I'm just glad that it's out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Marcus Machado was with us. You can go to officialmarcusmachado.com and Aquarius Purple.
Mm,
Pick up the vinyl right now, and we'll let you know when the downloads digital and is ready to go.
for
Hey,
sure.
another really important project you worked on with Shapeshift,
Hmm.
which was a great song we're playing here. And tell us about that, because you're right in New York City, a lot of injustice and everything, and people protest. And what was it like in New York City
Yeah,
going through this, and what got you to the point to make this record?
yeah, it was heavy. To that record Shapeshift, it really started. It started like around the time of Mike Brown and you know Trayvon Martin, and you know
Mhm.
it was just an idea. So it started like the template of the song was already kind of done, and then you know in the midst of working on different other projects and different songs for the album, it was just kind of sitting there. And then you know doing you know the last 2 years, you know that song I kept coming back to it, and piece by piece, it just started putting it together. So finally last year with you know it was a really strange time in New York here, you know, with a lot of injustice and just crazy stuff, just nonsense. And I felt like, you know, for me there's a song that, you know, there needs to be a message, and you know there needs to be some type of awakening. And you know, and it's not nothing to say to go out and go, you know, be bad or nothing to start smashing up windows and stuff, but it's like people need to hear the message and you know use our voice and our you know our instruments as voices, you know what I mean, to make change and stuff. And you know I reached out to Jay Swiss and RL, and you know I sent them the song, and you know we was kind of talking about you know everything that was going on, and it just happened and it morphed into you know what we know now as Shapeshift. And you know it's a heavy song, but also too it's a song that you know I've kind of went out of the box too, because I never really dug that deep for you know a song of my own like that too as well. And you know I'm happy how the way that it came out, and you know just a message. And you know even though we're going through tough times, there's light at the tunnel. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
what.
the video, you could definitely check it out on YouTube. It's really well done, and definitely moving.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Now I got to ask you a question, a musical question, because I was watching. You guys were jamming at Lincoln Center a few years ago,
Mhm.
and you played Kiss, and then you went into Talking Loud and Saying Nothing.
Wow.
Now, before you went into Kiss, or maybe in the midst of it, did you mix in like uh, Midnight Hour by Wilson Pickett?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay, there you go.
You
Yeah,
picked up
because I'm like,
oh, wow.
my wife and I were we were watching it. I said, wait a second, I think Midnight Hour clicked in there. I recognized Midnight Hour before Kiss, and I'm the biggest Prince fan.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy, man. You're really listening.
Oh yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, because I dig musicians like yourself. So
You, man. Thank you, man. Yeah, that was such a fun gig and stuff. And it was cold. It was a cold winter that time outside. But yeah, it was good vibes, good energy, and you know, we just that was kind of like a spontaneous. Yeah, I was like, you know, I told the guys, I was like, just follow me. We're just gonna jam out, and then we'll get into the show. And that's what happened. Kiss just kind of just happened. Midnight, you know, Whistle Picket song happened, and then yeah, that was the vibe.
yeah, great job with the legends right there. I actually, when I was like in my second year of radio, I think it was back in '83, I met Wilson Pickett and James Brown here
Wow.
in Stratford, Connecticut,
Wow.
backstage the same night. And if I was the age I am now, I would be like, wow, I really should have appreciated more.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
was like 19 years old, but they were really cordial and everything. Of course, great performers.
No, cool. Legends.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So for the guitar people out there, maybe pick up a thing or two for you. I know you go out to NAMM pretty often, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been going to NAMM this past, well, not this year, but the past 2 years. Yeah, I've been going out, yeah, to NAMM. It was fun. Yeah, the not last year, but the year before, we were. I played, on the D Jellico, showcase stuff, and then also too, was out there with Doug Wimbush from A Living
Oh
Color.
yeah,
Shout out
right.
to Doug and Daru. We
The
have
the Wind Bash, right?
yeah, Wind Bash. Yeah, the Wind
Yeah.
Bash. We have another project too that's we're working on that's gonna be coming out at some point. DMD. The vibes is, it's myself, Daru, and Doug Wimbush, which is a crazy power trio. It's like
Oh yeah, wow.
yeah, so yeah, yeah. Doug kind of really introduced me to the whole NAMM experience and all that. But yeah, it's fun, man. It's always fun, and also too, it's a hang because you get to see friends that usually you'll run into on the road, and everybody is busy, and it's just one big party. You know what I mean? One big hang. Mhm.
Do you keep it simple on your live performances, or you go crazy
Yeah,
with all the
yeah,
kit?
yeah. Yeah, I think for me, live performances, I'm not, far as with effects and stuff like that, I'm pretty simple. I'm not, for me, more in the studio is where I'm more experimental and stuff. But for me, it's like a fuzz face or a delay, a wah wah, and that's it. You know what I mean? Pretty much. And for me, it's all about feeding off the energy of the crowd and just playing. You know what I mean?
Right. So for the TV, it's a really cool setup, like kind of like a nighttime feel, like you're at a nightclub. Where do you guys record that?
Oh, say it again.
Where do you record QSTV? It's a
Oh,
nice
oh,
setup you guys
oh,
got.
oh, yeah, yeah. QSTV is a spot out in Brooklyn. It's called Quantum.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. It's a really dope club, and that's where we do our recordings and stuff like that. So as you know, things are opening back up. So hopefully, when we'll see how things are when things open back up, and if all goes well, we can start doing QSTV in front of an audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what one spots in New York City are you particularly looking forward to getting back on stage there?
Man, I've always loved Blue Note. Blue Note is always a fun place, because we
Hmm.
always, I will always play there. New Blue is another dope spot, out in the city and stuff. There's so many places. Yeah, but then at the same time, a lot of places is closed down, like Arlene's Grocery and
Yeah,
stuff.
I remember that. Yeah.
It's heavy. Yeah, it's a lot of clubs that has shut down. So I'm curious to see, which ones are going to be holding up. And I think at this point right now, it's just we just happy to play. You know what I mean? Just to get out and just play. Of course, it's not going to be. There's going to be some procedures, of course, and like that. And I know the capacity they're saying right now is about 100 people, but
Hmm.
for the most part, it's just we're just all excited to get back to playing. You know what I mean? I don't care if
Right.
it was two people. You know what I mean? I mean the virtual experience. It was kind of weird to not play in front of an audience, but then at the same time, it's like you make the best of it, and you just have fun and you play. So once things are open, definitely when you're here in the city, I'll keep you posted, man, so you can come out and check
Yeah.
out the show and stuff. Yeah, man, for
And
sure.
it's also cool, with the spring and summer coming up, the
Yeah.
outdoor gigs are going to
Sure.
be happening as well.
Sure. So, like I said, I mean, step by step. And like I said, I mean, we've been seeing progress. And, last year, this time, actually today makes a year that we've been going through this whole pandemic stuff. It's this today started, a year ago, this whole madness.
You're exactly right, because that was the last. I was at a job for 29 years, and it was a year ago to this day. That was my last day there. So
Wow. Wow, man.
yeah,
I'm just glad that, everybody's healthy and, we're here. We're still here, still kicking. So,
yeah. Still young to make some
Oh, yeah,
trouble, right?
yeah, right. There's a lot to
Yeah,
be done. There's a lot of work to
right.
a lot of work to be done. Mhm.
So Marcus, I really got to thank you for coming by Joe Kelley Radio, and hope to meet you in person
Sure.
within the few months. And we have bands come play live in the studio too. So you're always welcome to come up and just whatever you want to do, a trio or just by yourself.
Thank you, man.
You're more than welcome to. Yeah.
Will do, man. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And don't forget our listeners, official MarcusMachado.com,
Yep.
Machado, Machado.com, and Aquarius Purple. Tell your friends, a great record. And there are actual records and digital release coming up shortly. So I got to thank you, brother, for everything. And thanks for the music.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you, man. Take Take care.